moving forward, Haas, the Haas F1 team, have been a little bit more candid about the possibility of who they're going to sign for their F1 team for 2016 when they emerge. And Gene Haas had an interview the other day, and he has said, and I quote, "We have a list of drivers in which we are interested in, but in the next few months there will be many moves in the existing lineups, and we will wait to see who is interested in the project we are developing." And 3 names that were dropped into mention in this article written by thisisf1.com was the 2 current Ferrari reserve drivers, John-Eric Verne and Esteban Gutierrez, as well as everyone's favourite flavour of the month in F1, Nico Hulkenberg. Saying that Haas, specifically mentioning those 3, Haas said, "2 of them are reserve drivers for Ferrari, so they are certainly a possibility. As far as the other name that you mentioned, he's a driver from another team, so the possibility of him driving for us depends on his position within his team. Anybody who is driving in Formula 1 right now certainly is someone that we would be interested in if he becomes available." So, it's an interesting article mostly because it's not really the 3 guys they mentioned. Haas was specific to a degree, but he's also pretty much went out and said anyone on the open market has got a chance here, so to speak. So he's kind of watered that whole report down to an extent. But what do you make of these rumors, King?
They seem very solid about, where people were guessing Haas was going to look for drivers, that Ferrari was definitely going to be the place to look. Because Gutierrez has been high on many people's lists because he's a Ferrari reserve driver and he's Mexican.
All sponsored.
Yeah. And Jev, because he's an experienced veteran, also Ferrari driver. I don't know, Nico Hulkenberg again, it just seems, because Nico Hulkenberg's the hot thing right now.
Mm-hmm. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, Haas is affiliated with Ferrari, so naturally, the idea of taking any of their reserve drivers does make sense. It's not an oversight. it's just natural to think that, and I totally get why people would think that. So, why not go for Verne? And Verne is an experienced guy. He's had over, I think, something like 70 races now because he's done 4 years in the sport. So he's plenty experienced. I mean, it's kind of weird still calling Verne a veteran. He's only 24 years old himself, which is just terrifying. And it's right, that's still 3 years below the average age of the grid this year. Yeah, and he's a veteran with over 70 Grand Prix to his name.
On some teams, he would be considered a young driver.
Exactly, especially when you look at teams like McLaren where the average age of their drivers is 34 and a half. So it's a situation where Verne is 10 years underneath and he's still got 70 races to his name. And Gutierrez, again, not the best driver, but well sponsored, good name. He's been in the car for 2 seasons. Why not? So that's a name that's been thrown in the mix. I mean, Hulkenberg, you're right, is everyone's hot topic. He's the flavour of the month after the Le Mans win and his good performances lately. Hulkenberg is always looked at as the guy that never gets a top class opportunity. And as I've called him before on many occasions, it's like if the friend zone was real, it would have been invented by Nico Hulkenberg, and he's been overlooked twice for top level seats. He missed out on McLaren in 2013, which in hindsight probably wasn't a bad idea. Hindsight being 2020 and all that. But at the same token, he missed out on Ferrari last year as well when Raikkonen became available at the 11th hour. According to ESPN, I remember this report from last year, they said that Hulkenberg had signed his end of the deal. He was good to go. He had agreed to deal to go to Ferrari, and then at the 11th hour, Luca de Montezemolo changed his mind and went with Raikkonen instead. And again, hindsight being 2020, maybe that wasn't the right idea because Raikkonen's kind of crapped the bed for Ferrari since he's come back. But Hulkenberg missed out again, so he's always kind of been overlooked. This probably is his greatest opportunity. And it's a big if, and that's if Ferrari let Raikkonen go. I mean, we're going all silly season here in the moment, but it all comes down to Ferrari on this one, doesn't it, King?
Yeah, it always comes down to the big team that makes the first move first. Like last year was when, Red Bull announced that Sebastian was leaving to Ferrari, and Ferrari had to go after that. It's whoever makes the first move and pushes that first domino.
Exactly, and it's a situation where it's not like Red Bull where you kind of know what's going to happen because they have their own driver academy. They don't hire outside of that academy anymore, so you could just push guys up. For a matter of, when it came to Red Bull, it was just going to be a matter of, well, we all already kind of knew Alonso was leaving. Vettel was the obvious replacement there, and Red Bull were just going to bump up from within their own. So they just bumped up Kvyat into that seat, and Verne was cast away to the wayside, and then they filled in Sainz and Verstappen for the Toro Rosso seats. This is a different case. This is outside of that Red Bull umbrella, so it's a little bit more unpredictable. You've got Ferrari. They've been linked with Bottas all season long. The question is, do they want to pay the 20 million compensation to let Bottas out of his contract? And that's a big deal. And Bottas has kind of gotten sick of the rumours now. I think he's spoken quite publicly about that the other day, that he doesn't like these Ferrari rumours going around. He just wants to get on with his driving because he's a Finn. What did you expect? So Bottas has been linked. He just wants to get his head down and get on with it, which is kind of funny because he's only 3 points ahead of Felipe Massa, the guy Ferrari let go in the first place, which I find hilarious about all of that. But King, it looks like it's going to be between Bottas and Hulkenberg for this seat. Who would you go with?
To be honest, I'd go Bottas. He seems to be... I don't know, he seems to have a higher ceiling when it comes to success. At their peaks, it seems like Bottas has more potential.
The Christian Horner card.
Yeah, it seems like when I've seen Bottas shine brightest, it's been a lot brighter than I could possibly see Hulkenberg.
Interesting. I'm inclined to agree with that, only because, and this is the argument I've used, and people have addressed this to me on Ask FM. I've said Bottas has one thing Hulkenberg doesn't, and that's proof of concept. When you've given Bottas a top tier car, he has delivered. Because last year he was 4th in the championship. He had 6 podiums last season. He was excellent. One of the drivers of the year last year. And Hulkenberg, through no fault of his own, has been very unlucky to have never really had any time in a car where it was on that level of podium winning potential. He's been very unlucky in that regard, while Bottas has had that run at Williams for the last year and a half where they've been in the mix for race wins on occasion while being a perennial podium contender. Hulkenberg's never had that luxury. So with Bottas, you've kind of got a bit of a proof of concept in your corner there in that one. You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And Bottas is the safe bet, and it takes a rare scenario where Valtteri Bottas is the safe option. If that's the safe option, that's a pretty good option. And you probably have to have a really, really good reason to pick Nico Hulkenberg over him. And don't get me wrong, most people, me included, are huge Hulkenberg admirers. We all know how good the kid really is. And I think he's just going to be one of those guys that is just so critically unlucky when it comes to these things, and it's just, ugh.
I mean, it's through no fault of his own. I'm not saying,
none.
Neither of us are saying that Hulkenberg is a bad driver in any way. It's just that there's a better option on the table.
Yeah, and that's what it's pretty much always been for Hulkenberg. The only time where he wasn't probably, the best option was when McLaren went Perez over him in 2013. Well, for 2013 in 2012, because Perez had the 3 podiums going into that season, and Perez was white hot in 2012 for Sauber, when Sauber were inconsistent, but when they were good, they were really good, Sauber. So, and again, Hulkenberg's never had that luxury. He's never had that luxury of being in a car where he can really prove himself and really catch people's attention, unlike Perez, where he was inconsistent, but he had 3 podiums in that season, and potentially 2 wins he missed out on because he was very unlucky at Monza just to run out of laps, and Malaysia was a race he probably should have won. So it was a situation where, Hulkenberg's never been the best option, and that's really unfortunate. And as a fan, I'd love to see Hulkenberg get the chance he deserves, but at the same time, it's like, if I put my team boss hat on for a minute, Bottas really is the safe play, and you can't really shy away from that. As much as I'd love to see Hulkenberg in a top, and he still might get a chance, because if Bottas goes to Ferrari, there's an open seat at Williams, and they could easily just give Hulkenberg his old job back. Yeah. Just give Nico a call and say, hey, Nico, want to come back? And I don't see any reason why he'd say no. It's an upgrade on Force India, that's for sure. And, Williams aren't a top team. Me and a customer team's always got his drawbacks, but it's still Williams. It's still a way better team than Force India, and I'd almost guarantee he'd get the podium he's been so desperately craving with Williams as opposed to Force India, who have only ever had, I think, one career podium or two career podiums to their name since they came around in 2008. So, the Haas thing makes some sense if Hulkenberg wants to roll the dice and go to a team like Haas, who we don't know how they're going to perform yet, but, potential upside, all those fancy words, is a possibility, but, it's kind of a weird situation, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a weird situation where you kind of need the right cards to fall into the right hands, and we won't be 100% sure until it happens.
Exactly, and again, like we said, Ferrari hold all the aces here. We just got to wait and see what happens. It's a situation where if Ferrari keep Raikkonen, this talk is all for nothing. I don't see why Ferrari would keep Raikkonen, but hey, I've seen stranger things happen in this sport, so yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, if Ferrari let Raikkonen go, it's all going to fall like dominoes, and that's going to be very intriguing to see what happens. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on that one as time goes on.